Afternoon, everybody.
Hello there, everybody.
How we doing today? I see Michael from 2med2, I see Cam, and I see Aurora Farm Boy. How we
Thanks for
doing?
joining us, guys.
Indeed. We're doing all right. How you guys doing? Well, I'm doing all right. I'll let Josh.
I'm doing all right. Yeah.
I won't speak for him. So, I took a little week off last week, being the 4th, and just didn't really feel like messing around with everyone's holiday schedule, so we just decided not to do a live stream last week. So
Still had a recording though, so
yep,
got that out there.
yes sir. I am wearing my brand new. There we go.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Nice.
there it
I'm
is.
wearing a shirt that
Oh, nice.
that my wife and her sister made for me for Father's Day. So we got the
That's
Dadalorian.
Awesome. We didn't have a live show. Hey, what's up, Vader's girl? We didn't have a live show last week, like I said, but throw out a congrats to Dakota Latusek, who won the 500 follower contest. He decided to get a black logo t-shirt, so that's cool. Congrats to Dakota.
Awesome.
I should say that in the show too.
Yeah.
I remember. We didn't have a winner until like after we recorded last week's show. So
Was that for the 500th follower that
yep.
got? Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. And I've got that other one coming up. I just gotta figure out when I'm gonna announce that. But that'll be a fun one. Cool. All right. There is a lot of friends in here. I agree, Michael. Oh, Danny's here too. Welcome, Danny. All right, I'm gonna start recording. I've got a new bumper today. I get to show off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. Is it for our Thank the Maker segment?
You'll find out. There's Stephen Miller. Welcome, Stephen. Stephen, since you're here, I'm not sure if my wife did or not, but just to let you know, we'll be at church tonight. So All right. You ready to kick off?
Yeah,
Okay.
for it.
Here we go.
This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
Hello there, everyone out in the galaxy. This is the 37th episode of From a Certain Point of View. I am Josh,
I'm Adam.
and we are here to talk Star Wars today as usual. And Adam, what have you been up to in Star Wars this week?
The only thing, kind of like last week, I watched the movie that we're gonna be talking about today, Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as other Star Wars stuff, not a whole lot this week. Kind of a late week other than that, but I did watch Attack of the Clones through twice and watched a couple documentaries. So it wasn't a light week, just
Nice.
not branching out very much other than Attack of the Clones.
Just some preparation for the show today.
Yeah.
I also watched Attack of the Clones last night with the commentary that had like the cast and crew and George Lucas all a part of that
Mhm.
conversation. And Adam, I know that you also watched. Did you watch Hamilton this week?
Yeah.
'Cause we were talking. We
I
were talking a
watched
little
it.
Hamilton before we started here.
Yep. So it would have been after the last recording because we recorded on the 3rd, and then it came out on the 4th, right? Or did it come out on? I can't
The
remember.
third.
Did it?
Third.
Okay. But
Mhm.
I watched it after we recorded last week. So yeah, I watched it twice in the last week.
What were your impressions?
We talked a little bit about this before we went live, but it was different when I first watched it because I wasn't ready for it to be all sung. I wasn't ready for that rhythm the whole way through. So once I watched it, I actually split it into 2 nights. I watched through the intermission the first night,
Mhm.
and then I went back and watched the second half, the second act, the next night. So the second act I enjoyed a lot more just because I was ready for that. And then the second time I watched it the whole way through, I was ready for it the whole way. So I enjoyed the whole thing through the second time. So, but overall thoughts, it's incredible. It's really good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned last week probably that Brittany and I, got to see it in Pittsburgh because Brittany won tickets
Mm-hmm.
um, to Hamilton, and I see my wife saying in the chat right now, Hamilton is amazing, just her 2 cents, and I'm gonna go ahead and say hi to my daughter Sydney because she was saying hi to me in the chat as well.
Hi, Sydney.
Um, but yeah, I mean, when we saw it live, we were blown away by it, and I just continued to listen to the soundtrack over
Mm-hmm.
the next couple years after that, leading up till this point. And Adam, I'd mentioned to you that the cast in Pittsburgh was a different cast than the original cast, so it was kind of cool getting to see the original cast. Um, on Disney Plus with Lin Manuel Miranda and Leslie Odom Jr. and Jonathan Groff and all those guys
Yeah.
and gals. So it was, it's outside of Star Wars, but an awesome thing to check out on Disney Plus. So
Yeah, definitely. Cam's in chat. He says he hasn't seen it yet. Doesn't seem like his cup of tea. But here's
Mhm.
nothing but great things. And I'll tell you, and yeah, Cam, the whole thing is it's kind of hip hop. I don't know if I'd call the
some
whole
hip hop,
thing
some R&B, is a
There's
little
some
bit of
R&B.
R&B sound in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some bluesy type songs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all just R&B, but there is a rhythm through the whole thing. I'll say not all of the music is my cup of tea, but I enjoyed the whole thing. Lin-Manuel Miranda has this way of crossing genres sometimes, I think. It definitely has its roots in hip-hop and even a little bit of rap, but it's never, even for me not being a fan of that type of music, it's very easy to listen to. So
Yeah, and I will say I wasn't even a fan of theater at all, really, or musicals or anything like that until I saw Hamilton,
Yeah.
and that kind of changed my experience and my opinion on it. But hey, anyway, let's get back to Star Wars and
Oh
you
yeah,
know
Cam.
talk.
There's definitely sorry. There's
That's all right.
definitely actual singing. There's really really well composed songs.
Oh yeah,
Actual like Broadway style songs. So
yes, absolutely, great stuff.
Jonathan Groff just seals the show. I think is his King George.
Oh yeah,
It's
he's amazing.
yeah. Every time he's on
And
stage, he just kind of
and if
brings
any,
out that.
for anybody not familiar with Jonathan Groff, he is the voice of Kristoff and Sven in
Mhm.
Frozen.
Yep. So
Oh, he
yeah.
was also on a really good show on Netflix called Mindhunter, by the way. If you haven't checked that out, I recommend it.
Okay. Cool.
hmm So, what's going on? We had a poll result. We had
Yeah.
a poll last week,
Open-ended
kind
poll.
of, yeah, connected to our Phantom Menace talk.
Mhm.
The poll question was name maybe like a favorite moment from the Phantom Menace. What is your favorite scene or moment? Um, and I did promise that some of those answers would be included in this week's show. So here we go. Cam Ray mentioned, who's in the chat right now, the pod race and seeing the various aliens and Tatooine residents, intense excitement and speed, Anakin winning, as well as the final lightsaber fight, the choreography, the waiting game behind the laser gates, the score, everything. And, of course, the Duel of the Fates scene at the end was probably my favorite as well.
Mhm.
So we had a lot of votes for Duel of Fates, of course. Um, let's see here, what else? Duel of the Fates and Big Gooberfish, says Padawan of Christ. um, we had the Star Wars podcast replying as Maul and Sidious on Coruscant plotting against the Jedi right under their very noses. Literally the Phantom Menace.
Mhm.
Super short scene, but sweet and relevant. Thought
That was also one of the
yeah.
first scenes that they filmed in that movie, which I found out last week. I
Yeah.
don't think we mentioned
Yes.
that was. But it's interesting, yeah. Kind of set the tone for the whole
Right.
thing.
Mm-hmm. We had the Force Losers podcast chime in with, this is the first time Maul engage. They liked the first time Maul engages Qui-Gon on Tatooine. It was the first time a Jedi clashes sabers with a Sith in a millennia and lives to tell the tale. We had, besides Duel of the Fates from Death Star Dispatch, Qui-Gon checking Anakin's blood for midichlorians, and Qui-Gon.
I like midichlorians. I've always liked midichlorians.
I thought the conversations.
Mhm.
I don't. A lot of people take issue with the midichlorian thing. I really don't.
No, I like
don't
it.
love it, but I like the mystical and aspect of the Force and spiritual aspect a little more than the scientific kind of explanation behind it. But I don't have a problem with it.
Mhm.
So we had a lot of great responses to that poll. Just some favorite moments from the Phantom Menace. And Adam, can you tell us what's coming up on this week's show?
Yeah, we got some news this week. I thought it was a light news and light news week, and then I went back and started looking at some stuff, and it was not really a light news week. So, but we got some stories to talk about there, and then we're gonna jump into the second part of Thank the Maker, which is gonna be Attack of the Clones. So, without further ado, if you're ready, we'll jump into news.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
So first up in the news this week from the Hollywood Reporter, Jon Favreau gave an update on the Mandalorian season 2. There's not much new here, Adam.
Right.
There were a couple things that I wanted to pick out of here and maybe talk about a little bit. But yeah, there was a virtual panel for the ATX Television Festival, moderated by Vanity Fair's Anthony Resnikan. And Jon Favreau was quoted as saying, "Thanks to how technology forward Lucasfilm and ILM are, we've been able to do all of our visual effects and editing and post-production remotely through systems that have been set up by those companies for us." So they're on track basically for the October release of The Mandalorian season 2. One thing that I thought was interesting was Favreau noted that due to the rigors of the TV schedule, season 2 feels like a continuation of season 1 rather than a new thing. which I expected.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I think that's appropriate. I mean, I think there's a story left to be told, a continuation of what was
Hmm.
happening at the end of season one. Moff Gideon, the dark saber, baby, the child, and what the child's fate will be, um, and everything like that.
So with that, do you think that there's going to be a time skip here, or do you think it's going to kind of just pick up right off as they're leaving? Oh, I'm blanking on the name of the planet they're leaving.
Um, was it Navarro or a different
Yeah, I
one?
think it was Navarro.
Uh,
Sounds right.
yeah. Um, if there is a time jump, I would say it'll probably be not a lot of time will have passed.
Yeah,
Maybe a couple months or something like that, if I had to
yeah,
guess. But
yeah. That makes sense.
yeah, I don't think it would be a major time jump. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you think? You agree?
Yeah, I agree. I almost think that it'll. I don't know if there'll be any time pass at all. I mean, it might. Like even a couple months for me
Yeah, it could
seems a little long. I don't
it
know.
could pick
So
up
the
right after.
Mandalorian,
Yeah.
especially the first season, just felt like it just felt like one long day.
Hmm.
It just the way each episode flowed into each other and how each like I know some people thought it felt disconnected, but once you watch it all together back to back, if you have like 3.5 hours to do that,
Yeah.
it feels like one story. And so I think that it makes sense for chapter 2 to pick up right after that.
Yeah,
So
I think certain episodes play with different genres and everything,
yeah,
and
yeah.
make, but it's definitely a continuous connected story. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Um, and Taika Waititi was also a part of this interview, and he had said that he was asked about his Star Wars film, and he said it's finished, he's done. It's jokingly, of course. um, but yeah, we
Oh,
still have to look
Taika.
forward to his movie sometime in a few years down the road.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's about everything from that Hollywood Reporter article. And also moving on, connected to the Mandalorian, we had actually a music video
Yeah.
that was released. Ludwig Göransson, who is the composer for the Mandalorian music, released a music video of kind of him playing all these different
Hmm.
instruments with the Mandalorian main theme. And I thought it was just so interesting that he started just with a recorder that you would use in elementary school. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And just getting back to these simple, um, kind of organic feeling sounds,
Hmm.
and then building from that, pulling the guitar in, finally pulling an orchestra in later. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
throwing all these
Right.
different things in there. So, did you see this music
I
video? Because
did.
I
It
thought it
was
was great.
yeah, pretty cool. Starts off kind of reminds me of that episode of Disney Gallery where he's just kind of recording in his house or apartment or whatever wherever he lives.
Yes.
And then it kind of almost gets into him being in the volume and in the sets, some of the main sets that you see through the show, and it was a cool music video.
Yeah, it was really cool just to see that. And if you haven't seen that yet, I know it's on the Star Wars YouTube page. You can check it out there. Um, Also, possibly related to The Mandalorian, we had sort of a cryptic tweet sent out from Dave Filoni, um,
He's
where it's
good
an
at that.
image of Ahsoka with a shadow, and all the answers coming soon
Wait,
is the text. Did you see this?
yeah, was that? I don't think that was a real tweet.
Maybe it's not.
I think that was from a fake account.
It could have been.
Let me look at that. If it's the one I'm thinking about.
Oh, Stephen Miller is saying, okay,
Yeah,
we're
Stephen
getting some
Cam.
confirmation here that was a fake account. So I got overly excited for no apparent reason. Dang it, internet.
We'll edit that
Dang
out.
it, Twitter. Yeah. So we'll cancel that from our news for this week and move on to books and comics. Thank you for pointing out the fake news there. We
Yeah.
got to stay away from that stuff. Um, when it comes to books and comics, we had actually an excerpt released for Thrawn Ascendancy Chaos Rising. Did you read this excerpt yet,
I
Adam?
didn't have a chance to read the excerpt yet. No.
Okay.
I want to.
Me-
This is like every time I see these, and I did this with Light of the Jedi, but every time I see these, I'm like, I don't know if I don't really want to read this. I just want to wait, you know. But
Yeah, because you don't want.
so I don't usually jump on these very fast.
Right. Right. Yeah, I can totally understand that.
So
But that is on the horizon. I know you're excited about
yeah,
that book coming out.
yeah,
So
very much.
yeah. And finally, for our news for this week, we have Star Wars books at Del Rey Star Wars on Twitter. Had posted the final roster of 40 authors for From a Certain Point of View
Mhm.
Strikes Back.
Yep.
And I didn't know if any of those names kind of stood out to you, or if you were excited about any in particular that are on this
Well,
list.
for me, I mean, I almost feel bad. I mean, some of the names that I'm not really familiar with, so I'm kind of excited for the ones that I know. You know, John Jackson Miller and Kevin Scott and Delilah S. Dawson. You know, names like that. I guess names that are familiar because they've written other Star Wars stuff.
Right.
In recent memories, or Zareta Cordova's on there. So those are the names I think that excite me the most. But
hmm
I'm excited to see what everyone else, you know, brings to the table too. So the stories that they tell.
Yeah, I was actually excited to see Gary Whitta on there, who was a writer on Rogue One. Um,
Yeah,
and him coming into
yeah,
this, I think will be interesting. I'm curious to see what that's all about. That's the one that really jumped out to me. But
okay.
yeah, I don't know if anybody out in the chat, if there are certain authors you're looking forward to hearing from, and from a certain point of view, The Empire Strikes Back. But that will just, and I did see that Claudia Gray is absent from this list. Did you notice that?
Mm,
Unless I missed it.
no, I didn't. I didn't look at the list closely, but I don't remember seeing her. So
Yeah, I was a little sad to see that Claudia Gray was not on
yeah,
this
she's not
list.
on there.
Because she always has some of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
stuff, that she writes.
Right,
So a little disappointing, but I'm sure we'll get some great different points of view in this story.
for sure.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for the news this week. And I think we are ready to dive into behind the scenes, Thank the Maker, Attack of the Clones edition.
Thank the Maker. This oil bath is going to feel so good.
Brand new bumper
So-
there.
So Adam, you mentioned
Yeah.
it, and as soon as you said there's a brand new bumper, I knew it was
You
going to be
knew it.
that.
Yep,
So
yep.
I'm very pleased.
Yep, it wasn't a surprise, but it was worth it. So last week we talked a lot about Phantom Menace, and then this week I guess that means we're moving on to Attack of the Clones, number 2. So like we mentioned last week, the Thank the Maker is really just kind of going through and giving some of our favorite little behind the scenes stories, and just kind of throwing some appreciation to the cast and to the people involved in making these movies that we talk about every week. So like I said last week, this isn't really going to be like a comprehensive behind the scenes look, so there's a good chance that we're not going to be saying anything that is like earth shattering here. So but I just hope that
Right.
maybe you use these as a catalyst to go back and go read some books about this process for this movie, other movies, check out some documentaries, listen to some audio commentaries, things like that, just to hopefully this serves as an entry point into you learning more about behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, I'm always I've been enjoying doing this series so far, Adam, just because I've really been enjoying going back and listening to these audio commentaries,
Yeah.
and just hearing again George Lucas talk about the films.
Mhm.
Because I feel like it's been a while since I've heard from George Lucas. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
nice to hear him talk Star Wars.
Yeah, it definitely is. And there's times where I just listen to him talk and just have to laugh, and it's just
Oh, I know.
so he just gets himself lost sometimes, I think.
He does.
And going back to Naboo, I heard a lot of
Naboo.
Naboo this week, but I also heard some Dooku.
Dooku, yeah.
Dude, yeah, something like that.
Uh-huh.
He puts that emphasis on that last syllable,
Yeah.
Dooku
Yeah.
or something. It's
Mhm.
interesting. But yeah, so starting off with the cast, one of the first things I heard Natalie Portman talk about was how she felt more free playing Padme this time, and it's because she wasn't the queen this time. She's not in the makeup, she's not in the dress.
Right.
She's kind of just her doing her own thing, and so she felt a little more liberated in this movie than last movie, um, which I can see. I think that's I can easily see that scenario
Mhm.
where that queen's outfit would be a little bit restricting. So
Yeah, and related to that, I remember watching last night and hearing Ewan McGregor talking about how, you know, Obi-Wan isn't as straight of a character in this one. He kind of gets a little witty and everything in there too, and has a little bit more confidence now that he's the Jedi Master and not the Padawan, and he might have felt a little more freedom in that role as well. So I thought that was interesting.
yeah, for sure. Samuel L. Jackson. This is interesting, and I want to talk about this a little bit. He
Yeah.
views Mace as this kind of pure, unadulterated good guy,
Yeah, I thought that was
which
really
is
interesting.
interesting. Because you hear a lot of talk about how Mace kind of almost flirts with the dark side sometimes,
Mhm.
and it's interesting to hear him talk about him that way. That's how he interprets it, and maybe he's just not used to playing a character like that. He's used
I
to
was just
playing
gonna
kind
say
of the
that.
more tough guy character.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe compared to his other roles, this is a
Yeah,
good guy,
right.
this
You know,
unadulterated good guy.
where
But
he's
yeah,
not really gonna
um,
be throwing out a lot of MFers in this role. He's like, you
no,
know, so this is
yeah,
maybe like a little bit more of a good guy role for him. So I don't know if it's a perspective thing. I don't know,
could
but
be, yeah,
so I thought that was very interesting to hear him say that. Now I actually had to rewind to make sure I heard him say that right and make sure he wasn't talking about someone else.
right,
Because
yeah.
I don't really view Mace as that unadulterated good guy.
He can be a little bit of a jerk,
Yeah.
you know,
And maybe that's
but
perspective on my part from seeing Clone
yeah,
Wars and things like that.
right. But you know, Cam
Yeah.
Ray is saying in the chat, watch Shaft the other night. Mace is a freaking saint. So
Fair
compared
enough.
to
Fair enough.
Shaft, yeah. There you go. But yeah, I mean, different points of view on the character of Mace Windu.
Yeah. Ewan McGregor mentioned that he was doing his best, really, to imitate Alec Guinness this time around. And
Hmm.
George had even commented on how, so after some scenes, he got the same impression. That was very um, Guinnessy to coin that term. But
Yeah, I'm wondering which line that was, that he was delivering that
yeah, I don't know.
reminded George of Alec Guinness.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. He didn't
Hmm.
actually say that specifically, and it almost sounded like it happened multiple times. So,
Maybe, yeah. Hmm.
um, but I mean, I can see some Alec Guinness in what he did in episode
Yeah.
two, especially
Hmm.
he's kind of on his own a little bit in this episode, doing some detective stuff, and just in some of the mannerisms that he has this time around, I can see more of Alec Guinness in this than I did in episode one.
Yeah, and I will say that as far as the Obi-Wan storyline goes, it's in and George Lucas talks a lot, and we'll probably talk about this in a little bit, but he talks about how he intercuts different stories,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
following Obi-Wan, I find Obi-Wan's story to be the most interesting in this
Mm.
movie, in the whole mystery and the whole detective, and I think we're going to get into that whole film noir thing. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that whole aspect of it, and the mystery of the creation of the clones and Sifo Dyas, I always found that very compelling and very interesting, and
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit different for Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And we'll get into this more later, but um, Ewan also had said that the part on Camino just about drove him crazy because he's basically in a blue box by himself for days on end. So much
Right.
of that, and until he really meets up with Django and works with Tamura a little bit, um, that's really just him by himself the whole time, you know, and that's all put in later.
I'm sure he's going to love filming for the Obi-Wan series,
Yeah.
given the fact that they're going to probably be using the volume, and not having to be in a blue box. You know, he's going to be able to have
Hmm.
surroundings around him, the screens,
Yep.
the set built into that, and
You know,
I
that's one
think
of the
he'll,
things that
yeah.
as you go back through this stuff, that's one of the things that everyone talks about. All of the actors that are involved in this movie, that's what they talk
Hmm.
about, is being on a blue screen the whole time, you
Yeah,
know?
and the difficulty of doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah,
So the volume just has to be just groundbreaking in terms of what the difference that it provides in that, you know? And then
yeah.
we can talk about this more later, but you know, seeing them back into the Jedi Council chamber, and just now that I see how they're doing that light wrapping thing, that's all I
Hmm.
can see. You know,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
how they're adding that light in behind them all the time.
I
Um,
know it, and it looks weird.
yeah,
When you when you see it now. You know what
yeah.
I mean. Um,
But then, like you said, that's not a problem anymore with the volume. You
right.
know, you
You
film
get
a
that
council
natural lighting
chamber
coming off of it, and
into the
yeah.
volume, and then it's just there. You know, it's right. So
I think it's just super cool that this is all coming full circle for Ewan McGregor, and he gets a chance
yeah,
to play this role again, and
yeah,
do it in this way. So
yeah.
excited for him.
We had some fun cameo appearances here, which
Hmm.
is something that's always fun to pick out in Star Wars. But we had two here. In one scene, Ahmed Best and Anthony Daniels are in the sports bar on Coruscant.
Hmm.
Um, Ahmed Best is kind of with but they kind of both happen roughly around the same time. You know, as
Yeah.
the dismembering. um, which George talks about that a lot too. That's another one of those beats that he uses.
Another one of those echoes,
Yeah,
and yeah, that is
using some
repeated.
type of club with
Obi-Wan
yeah,
taking
echoes
out
back to
somebody's appendage in a
yeah.
club or bar or cantina.
Yep.
Yeah.
So so they're both right around that dismembering scene. Ahmed Best is kind of with a group in the back at a table, and Anthony Daniels kind of turns and looks over his shoulder as it happens, and
Hmm.
you actually see him twice pretty quick. But yeah, so if you didn't know that, be on the lookout for Ahmed Best and Anthony Daniels in the sports
Yep.
bar. And then I want to talk about Christopher Lee a little bit, because this is his entry into Star Wars, into a character that we're still learning more about. You know,
Hmm.
as time goes on with Clone Wars and audio dramas and things like that. So Christopher Lee's, you know, prior to like maybe when he started really getting back into major productions around around this time 2002 with Lord of the Rings, and then with um, Attack of the Clones here, was really mainly known for like his horror roles, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
He played Dracula a few times, so then he comes into this role, and it's a villain, but it's a very different type of villain, I think, than what
Yeah.
he's used to playing. And I didn't write down the quote, but I'm pretty sure he talked about this a little bit in the audio commentary tracks. I don't know if you wrote that down at all, but he talked about how this wasn't really his normal role, you know, and it's almost
Right.
it echoes a little bit of Saruman in Lord of the Rings, you know, the
Hmm.
good wizard that ended up falling, uh, you know, to the bad guy wizard type thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
even in this, it's a little more reserved. And George talked about a little bit how he wanted this kind of intrigue or mystery around this particular character. Is he bad? You know how, where does he fall and all this?
Hmm.
Because we don't want him to be like, okay, he's definitely the bad guy right now, but
Right.
we find out through this movie and then through definitely the first part of the third movie that he is that person. But so it's a very different role for him, I think,
Hmm.
and it's almost a shame that he didn't get more time in that.
I agree. I think he's great as Count Dooku, and
Yeah.
also as Saruman the White. I
Hmm.
mean, Christopher Lee is just he was a fantastic actor. Um, and I loved what he brought to both of those characters, and with Count Dooku, yeah, he isn't your typical like villain. Yeah, he's kind of, and even in that scene where he is holding Obi-Wan and
Hmm.
talking to him in that scene, and wanting him to join him and destroy the Sith. Like, it's interesting how George Lucas sees that scene. He sees it as Dooku is seriously trying to get Obi-Wan to join him to eliminate Sidious.
Hmm.
Whereas when I have watched that movie, I always took that scene was he's just messing with Obi-Wan. You know what I mean? Like, he's not, because he and Sidious have this plan that they're gonna follow through. I never saw that as a serious attempt
Yeah,
to turn Obi-Wan. You know what I mean?
right. Uh, but I do think Christopher Lee was just perfect for this role.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
just like you said, I read something this week. He never really wanted to be the romantic, you know, handsome type good guy. You know,
Hmm.
so I think he was perfectly cast for that role. Just kind of wish that he got a little more time between this and then just meeting his end pretty quick in 3. But
Yeah,
I'm
I
very
agree.
glad that we've gotten more of him. Just not Christopher Lee. So
Hmm. Yep, I'm
Christopher
with you.
Lee is just. uh, it's been about 5 years since we lost him, but I loved everything that he did, even down to
Hmm.
his. He did metal when he was in his 90s.
Hmm.
Putting out metal CDs and albums
Yeah.
and metal Christmas music and just he was an amazing guy, and it's pretty cool that we get to have him as part of our Star Wars universe. So,
For sure.
all right, moving on to some of the filming and production uh, little tidbits that we have here, I guess. Um, the speeder chase scene with Anakin and Obi-Wan. Um, as they're chasing down Zam, Wessel, and Coruscant was very interesting. In that they had to set up the entire planet at that point. We know that Coruscant's a city planet, but this is the time where they had to set up these different districts and these
Hmm.
different parts of this planet to make it look alive.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of little Blade Runner references and
Hmm.
some inspiration at that point. Um, you know, uh, I think episode 2. I in my younger days, I loved episode 2, and I've kind of
Yeah.
grown away from it a little bit.
Same
Um,
here.
and a lot of it was because of this, setting up this entire city planet.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I was always fascinated in Coruscant, and like when I was younger, and especially like the underground kind of Coruscant, the criminal underworld that you know we get into a little bit of that with level 1313 and
yeah,
everything, and
right,
um, I was always very interested in that, in the different aspects of Coruscant.
yeah, definitely. And then you get so much of this as I'm going back and listening to audio commentary and stuff. And again, this is to the credit of the technology at the time, but so many things are digital in this that I didn't know were digital.
Right. Hmm.
um, Going back, talking again about that speeder chase scene. There's a part as Anakin is kind of slipping off of their speeder, of Zam's speeder,
Hmm.
where the top half of him is real and the bottom half of him is CG, and it's
Yeah,
like
I had no idea.
I had
Yeah.
no idea either, which is, um, like I said before, it's a credit to what they did. That we
Hmm.
complain a lot about these movies being overly CG'd, and when you go back and find out just how much of it is CG'd, then yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that probably
There's an
might be
argument to be made there, but
sure. Um, but a lot of the stuff and what they did is just pretty incredible,
yeah,
especially 20 years ago.
and I think with George's vision and what he wanted to do and how he wanted to, again, we go back to the world building and just some of the things that are done in the films. He had to use that technology basically
Yeah,
to accomplish what he wanted to. So
yeah. You had mentioned some intercut stuff, so why don't you talk a little bit about Empire here?
yeah, again, George just repeating these beats and repeating these themes, in the way that he kind of splits up the action, um, and he has this kind of trademark thing where if you look at The Empire Strikes Back, which is this, of course, this kind of the second act of the trilogy, and Attack of the Clones as well. Um, he separates the characters and then intercuts their stories. So in Empire, you have this love slash action story with Han and Leia in the Falcon, and then intercut with Luke's training in this kind of mythological discussions about the Force and philosophical conversations and everything. So you have those intercut, and then Attack of the Clones, you have again a love story that's intercut with a mystery, with Obi-Wan surrounding the creation of the clones and everything. Um, so it's something that he intentionally does, to try to kind of balance those things out. And of course, I think a lot of people probably prefer the love story between Han and Leia over the one, with Anakin and Padme. But there's a reason he's doing those things.
Yeah, Cam says in chat here that he remembers being a member of Star Wars Hyperspace, which I don't remember that, or whatever it was called, and would log in every day and watch the live filming of the prequels. And I didn't know that was a thing, or I would have
me neither.
definitely loved to have
That's
checked that
cool.
out. They said it was just all giant green rooms, and at the time it was great, which is pretty. Yeah, I mean, I think that would have been really cool to see that as giant green rooms and to wonder, what's going to be happening here, where is this going to be going, But
yeah,
for the actors, that had to just be a pain in the butt a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
So, we mentioned before about how the Obi-Wan story has elements of film noir, and so one of the things that I've done this week is kind of go back and check out what film noir is, which I knew what film noir was. But just kind
on
of
a
go
basic
back and
level,
and just to learn a little bit more about it. But yeah, and you've mentioned on the show before how Obi-Wan's story is really just a it's a detective story for him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Really after the Coruscant scenes, he's on his own and he's tracking down this assassin, and then it all kind of comes together at the end, on Geonosis. But yeah, so this is kind of Lucas again, really referencing some of, I don't know if maybe they'd be like his favorite genres or stories, but he always talks about Star Wars being like this echo of like a 1930s serial type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this episode, this is kind of his homage to, the 40s and 50s and 60s film noir type story. So it gets Obi-Wan doing something different and interesting. And
I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, it gives Ewan some time to do stuff on his own, which I think is important for his character, but then also kind of one of those things that allowed us to kind of grow with him more, So, but yeah, and then talking about homages, Dex's Diner is actually George's little nod to American Graffiti, which is pretty cool. So he wanted that set in a diner with a Dex type character, and that was really just him nodding back to American Graffiti. Ben Burtt, I wanted to talk about this a little bit. Ben Burtt was a sound designer for the film, and this is actually one of my favorite parts of the prequel trilogy as a whole, is the sonic charges,
like the seismic charges,
and the asteroid scene.
I love that.
And he said
part too.
Yeah, this is really where, for him, the sound effects got to have their spotlight.
I love how there's that moment of silence.
Yeah.
And then, and it's really cool.
And he described that as a audio black hole in space. Where for that particular second, all of the audio is just kind of trapped in this black hole and pulled in. And then after that second, it just kind of pushes back and just, kind of destroys everything in its path. They said that took a little bit. They actually cut the music for most of that scene, and it doesn't kick back in until right around the time of the last missile.
Yeah.
And like I said before, this was them giving their spotlight to the sound effects for that particular moment of the movie. But that actually took a little convincing to let George and even John Williams kind of just cut the music for that whole section, you know?
Yeah. And I think
And
they did the same thing during the pod race in episode 1,
yeah,
where
right.
the music is cut out for some moments in there,
Yeah.
just to allow the sound
Mhm.
effects and the sound and everything to come through.
But yeah, that's actually one of my very favorite moments in the prequel trilogy as a whole. Is that
I'm with you.
start? And you know what? And I forget who said it, but you don't actually get a lot of for Star Wars being Star Wars. You don't actually get a lot of these like space battle scenes. You know?
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. There's not as
S-
many of them as you would think, you know.
Yeah. So this is one of the few dogfight scenes you actually really get
Mhm.
in Star Wars, which, you know, for that being the focus of so many games and things like that, and then you have the whole X-wing book series, and
Yeah.
now we have Alphabet Squadron. You know, it's interesting that we focus so much on that when in the films you don't get it that whole lot. You know,
Not a whole lot, no. Yeah.
so
Mhm.
and just another interesting thing: the Lars Homestead here was filmed in the exact same location as A New Hope, so they actually had to go back and find out. And I remember if we talked about this last week,
I
but
think
they did mention this in Phantom Menace also, where they
Mhm.
actually had to find where that was because they didn't keep very good records of where they were back then.
Right.
But they actually did end up finding where it was, and so yeah, the Lars Homestead was filmed in the exact same place. So
And I guess that sinkhole was still there and everything
yeah, hmm
that they used. So, interesting.
yep. So moving on to to the technology of this film, you know, this film is really when episode 1 used a lot of this digital the CG film, the CG effects and things like that, but this is when it really kicked into gear. You know, I think that they learned,
Mhm.
okay, we can do this, and so they really leaned on it in this film. One of the things I watched was a documentary called George Lucas on the Digital Revolution, and in it he said that all art is based on how far you can push the technology. So,
Mhm.
like I said, I think this is where they were really pushing the technology and seeing where they could
Yeah.
take this now that they found out that they could do it. Um, this was the first movie to be shot entirely in a digital format.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that because when you mentioned that, because they got comfortable a little
Mhm.
more comfortable with it in Phantom Menace, and then they, shot all digital for Attack of the Clones. Yeah, and
Yeah,
um,
and
I remember actually going down to the Omnimax theater
mhm.
at the Science Center um, to watch Attack of the Clones. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and this is one of those things. He also mentioned in this documentary about this 10-year gap, between the introduction of a technology and when people actually just start to accept it.
Hmm.
And it's really true in this. I mean, how many films are shot digitally now as opposed to when he was doing this back then?
Right.
Um, and I don't know if it was 10 years, but it definitely took Hollywood some time to come around to this idea.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it takes some time for everyone else to catch up once these pushes in technology are made.
Yeah, definitely. Um, let's see here. One of the interesting things I found out about this, the paintings that they would use to kind of visualize or conceptualize, or we look at concept art nowadays, but
Hmm.
they actually, these concept art paintings sometimes actually ended up going from just being a storyboard element to almost being used in the film. So they actually got this to a point where these paintings could be just handed over to the animatics department, and they could really just use those paintings to just create a rough cut of the film. And a lot of times that rough
Hmm.
cut was just kind of enhanced and built upon to get to the
Yeah.
final film. One of the places that they showed this happening is on Geonosis, as Anakin and Padme are being carted out.
Hmm.
Uh, you can see how they used really just a painting, just like a concept art shot to really just bring that whole scene to life, and do that, you know, through computer graphics. So
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Just the way that works.
yep. And then the last thing that we can talk about a little bit is digital Yoda. This is really the first time that digital Yoda was used on screen as well.
Right, right.
And it's interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, they couldn't have done a puppet Yoda with what happens with
Right,
yeah.
right.
So
Especially that lightsaber duel.
yeah, but it goes really back to Jar Jar. Once they found out they could do this with characters like Jar Jar and Watto,
hmm
uh, then they really just leaned in on this and started doing this with Yoda. And they mentioned how they studied, what Frank Oz had done with the puppet, in terms of facial expressions and even what would happen with his ears as he would move them, how they would twitch a little bit. And so they had to add that type of stuff in just to make it feel, like it did with the puppet. But facial expressions and even how Frank Oz would kind of make him limp as he walked, and that's how they got that walk that they use with the cane. They really wanted it to look just like the puppet, only upgraded.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it was great getting to see Yoda as a warrior. That's kind of mentioned
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the Empire Strikes Back when Luke's going to find this warrior. And we get to see that happen in this film.
One of the things I thought was very interesting is they in the scene where Mace and Obi-Wan and Yoda are walking through the temple, and Yoda's on his little hover chair. They talked about needing a way for Yoda to keep up with them because he's so slow and old.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
Just
does he really need that? Because in like an hour he's gonna kick some butt,
right.
So-
I guess he really had to channel the Force to
Yeah,
drop that
Just had
cane
to
and get into
open
action.
himself up,
Yeah.
It's just kind of fun. I'm not actually complaining about that. I know that that's the explanation for what he did later.
Right.
It just always strikes me as funny that he's so
Yeah,
old
it
and
is
slow,
funny.
and then all of a sudden he just
Yeah.
opens up. But
Right.
really that lightsaber battle just really just kind of became a hallmark moment for him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even though it gets a little ridiculous, and it
It does, but
it's fun.
fantastic.
And
Yeah, it's fun.
and that's what
It's,
it needs to be at the end of the day. Is just it needs to be something that's fun to watch. Um. So yeah, I definitely we said this in chat, and I think you said it on live before, but I really enjoyed going back and just watching more of the audio commentaries,
Yeah.
and watching some documentaries and just getting that appreciation back, because it's been so
Absolutely.
long since I've gone back and watched some of the special features for these movies.
Yeah, and I'm sure at one point or another I listened to these commentaries probably, but
Mhm.
it's been so long, that I forget, and it's just nice to revisit that. So I'm really glad we're doing this Thank the Maker series for
I
sure.
I was never a huge audio commentary guy. So like I remember some of these things, so I must have watched them somewhere along the line.
hmm
But if I did, like I said before, it's been so long that I didn't remember any of it, like in detail, So
Yeah, I'm always really interested in like hearing the filmmakers' explanations behind certain things and
Mhm.
everything, and like sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get some answer to some question I have if I'm listening to what they're saying about it, and
No.
sometimes you get little answers here and there.
Yeah, you
you
do.
know.
And George gave a
Yeah.
few answers, and he talked about the my favorite scene, the fireside chat with Anakin and Padme.
hmm
I've never hidden how I feel about that scene because I hate it.
Yeah, I mean,
But he
I
talked
think
about that, and he
he was
said,
going for like Shakespearean type situation there, but it just
yeah, and he talked about it
you
how
know
he was going. It's supposed to be that it's supposed to be, um, overly romantic and overly operatic.
Uh-huh.
I think is the word he used, was operatic.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I get that.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so maybe that'll help me a little bit. Maybe it won't be so, because I mean it's rough.
Well,
It's cheesy as
I think it is cheesy, but
Yeah.
I think if you have to consider maybe the time period this is a more formal time, with the Jedi Order being
Yeah, that's true. That's
in the
true. That's a
Republic
good
and
point.
everything. So I think they spoke a little more formally than
That's a
in the
good point.
original trilogy. So that not that it excuses it entirely, but I think it helps make a little more sense of that dialogue.
Yeah, for sure. Danny's in chat, and she says she loves Attack of the Clones. It's her favorite PT film, and actually top 5 all-time Star Wars films. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Loves the politics, and it stands up particularly strong now that the Skywalker saga is complete.
I think there's a lot of great political intrigue.
I was just
in
gonna say,
these
I
prequels.
love the politics in these get drugged through the mud, but I love the politics in
Well,
these.
you can
It has to be
appreciate it more
said.
when you get a little older. You can appreciate it more. Than
Yeah.
when I was a kid watching these, I didn't care about the political stuff, but now it's interesting. You know what I mean?
I kind of have all along, and I mean it has to be part of it. You're talking not just about the fall of Anakin, but you're talking about the rise of an empire.
The rise of the empire.
So how does that happen? It doesn't just happen overnight. It has to, there has to be these little things, and it starts with something as small as a trade route dispute, and then that lets someone like Palpatine kind of edge his way into things, and then this movie is really him cementing his power and staying in power. Lucas mentioned. They talk about term limits in this movie. I think specifically for Padme, and how she, kind of chose to go back and serve after this, and so that was actually in there as like a direct, a direct opposition to what Palpatine is doing, where he's also facing term limits, but he's finding a way to stay in power.
And it increases power, really.
Yeah, right.
And it was fascinating to me. Just first of all, I think Palpatine's grand master plan is just brilliant in the way that it plays out in these movies, and especially in Attack of the Clones. You see, just this vote from Jar Jar for these emergency powers to be given to Palpatine. And that's kind of the start of how you get to an emperor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we talked about that last week. That's why Jar Jar is such an important character. He's not just comic relief. I mean, yeah, that's what he's there for a lot of times, but that's not his main role in these movies. He's there for a reason, playing that role for a reason.
So yeah, good stuff.
Yep. So yeah, a lot of appreciation in the chat from Rural Farm Boy and Danny and Cam Ray for Attack of the Clones. And Cam says the Yoda Dooku fight got so pumped when it happened, and yeah, when I saw, I'll never forget, being in the theater and seeing that shadow come around the corner.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here we go.
Yoda. Yeah, it was. I loved it.
I was probably in 10th grade or something like that,
Yeah, I remember I was actually going through physical therapy for my shoulder because I had dislocated my shoulder. And I remember every time I was in there, there'd be like a preview for Attack of the Clones on one of the little TVs they had hanging up. And I just remember being so excited for that movie at the time and seeing all the Jedi lighting up their lightsabers in the arena and everything, So, yeah, good memories.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, man, that Yoda and Dooku fight was just that got my blood pumping,
Yep.
So
for sure.
All right, well that wraps up Thank the Maker for Attack the Clones. You ready to also wrap up episode 37?
Let's do it.
I'm just glad you're here. At the end.
All right, thank you everyone for tuning in to episode 37. We hope you enjoyed Thank the Maker, Attack of the Clones. I wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone in chat. We had 2Med2, Michael from 2Med2, Cam Ray, Rural Farm Boy, Vader's Girl, Semperfi Danny, Mr. Rez, Stephen Miller, Radio Rebellion, the Bosch blog, which would be your wife Brittany, and I think that takes care of everyone. If I missed you, I am
so.
very sorry. But thank you everyone for chatting with us. Remember, if you're here watching live, remember to hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. If you are listening live, or if you're just listening later and haven't subscribed to the podcast, do that, please. And if you are on a podcast app like iTunes or Apple Podcasts that lets you leave a review, do that as well. That helps us get out to more people and have more people find out what we're all about here. Check out the website from a certain point of view.com. And remember, we got a new merch store up there that you can get to from the shop link on the top. There's also blog articles. There's also contact information there if you want to, get in touch with us for any reason, have an idea for a show, want to write a blog article, anything like that. Our socials are Twitter, Certain POV Pod. Facebook is From a Certain Point of View. Discord server link is in the show notes and also on the website. Email address is certainpovpod@gmail.com. And we are hosted by Anchor.fm, where you can leave a 60-second voicemail and you can, chime in on your favorite aspects of Attack of the Clones, ask us a question, make a comment on a past episode, whatever you want to do. We'd be happy to play it here on the show. We are part of the Red 5 Network. Remember to check out red5network.com for all of the other great shows on the Red 5 Network. You can find me on the internet. Twitter is the best place, and I am at thegauze85 on Twitter. Josh, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at JediJarJar1722. And I just want to say thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. It was a great conversation, diving back into the prequels and thanking the makers of these films. Keep a lookout on our Twitter page for the weekly poll, as always. And just thanks so much for being a part of From a Certain Point of View podcast. And remember that everything we said today was true.
From a Certain Point of View. Okay. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us. Anybody got any fun plans on Saturday and Sunday?
I know that I don't have any plans other than just hanging
I don't
out.
either.
How about you? Nothing?
Nope, nothing here. I was just had my birthday yesterday. I was honestly just chilling.
Yeah,
out.
how was your birthday?
It was good. It was good.
That's good.
I just wanted to chill out all day, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
Except I had to work. But the cool thing about work yesterday was that all of our computer systems were down. And since I work at home, that meant that I was just watching Hamilton and getting paid doing it. So
There you go. Can't beat that. It's happy birthday
so that
to
worked
you.
out. That worked out for me.
Yeah.
I was happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to congratulate Dakota on the giveaway.
Oh, that's all right.
I'll add something later.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, hey, we turned over 50 subs on YouTube while we did the show,
that's
which is
fantastic.
cool. We're halfway to getting rid of that ugly link and getting an actual YouTube / From a Certain Point of View link.
Do you have to get to 100 to do
Thanks,
that?
RFB. Yeah, 100. So we're at 52 now. 48 more. We'll get there.
Yes, indeed.
It'll be so nice to just say that instead of having it to be YouTube /watch $V = 2G _ NQKQQ39G.
Right.
So
It's a lot of letters.
yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap it here. Probably a little snack. Oh, I tried out. You tried out BSB wings?
Yeah,
That's
they're really
right.
good.
Yeah, that's what I had for my birthday dinner yesterday.
They have good sandwiches too.
Yeah, we did. We just did. I did boneless wings and then got the bacon ranch fries. So I have some bacon ranch fries left.
Nice.
I enjoy that.
Yeah,
But,
not too long ago we Brittany and I split like a Philly steak sandwich, which was good, and we split some wings too.
nice.
Have you guys just been doing like takeout, or have you been
Yeah, we
going
did
out to
takeout.
restaurants? Or
We haven't really gone out anywhere yet. So-
I'm starting to feel like I need to like stay in the house again. All these
Yeah, I know.
numbers going up again and everything.
Yeah, I know.
It's ridiculous.
So,
Yeah.
and thanks, Mike. So remember, yeah, if you're still watching here live, remember Alberto Radio Rebellion's on at 5 on YouTube, and then at 10, 2med2 is doing Septic Tank solo watch party. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus now.
Yeah, you do, RFB. You want some bacon range fries.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
man,
does sound
they were
good.
so good. They were so good. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up here so I can go
Yeah, have a
enjoy
good
my
weekend,
leftover
everybody.
bacon range fries.
Rubbing it in now.
Yes, I am. Thanks for joining, everyone. Remember, we'll be back live next week, and the new episode will be out tomorrow, which is what you already listened to today. So, but thank you for hanging out. We'll talk to you later. May the force be with you.